Hey folks, welcome to another edition of the Heritage Wealth Planning YouTube channel. Today is our last chapter that we're going to talk about on my book, Strategic Money Planning, 8 Ways to Get Your Financial House in Order. And this chapter is the exciting topic of estate planning. But don't hang up yet. Don't click out of here yet, because there are three critical elements to estate planning that has so much more to do than just if you're some rich person, you want to leave all your money to a trust or something like that. Estate planning is so much more beneficial to you if you do it right, even if you don't have that much money, even if you're young. Estate planning is a necessary, and you're going to hear my story about why you need it here in just a second. Before I do that, though, I tell you, YouTube is the best. So I have this is the mic that I use, and I had my other computer had a blue screen of death just the other day, and supposedly this mic does not work with Chromebook. I was like, man, I just bought this mic. It's a great mic. My blue screen of death on my PC, I was like, it's been an old PC, and I love my Chromebook, and so I've been using Chromebooks all the time. And I was like, well, but I need a good mic because a Chromebook mic isn't great. So I go on YouTube, and there's two kids, probably under 10, who showed me how to plug this in to Chromebook and have it work. Democracy, man. Democracy of information is wonderful, and hopefully I can share some of that democracy of information with this topic that we talked about here in terms of estate planning as well. So anyway, just thank you, YouTube, and hopefully that some of the information you get here you can share with others, and we can all be better off for the knowledge that we share. So on the 8th chapter, we talk about make sure your durable power of attorney is in guardianship are in order. Now, both of those things come from your will. So everybody needs a will. All right. Now, you probably hear this a lot, and I'm not going to go into the gist of every single capacity of a part of a will, but I will talk about those two prevailing issues of why you need a will. Guardianship, we'll start with that one. So I have 4 children. If I were to get killed and my wife were to get killed, who's going to take care of my minor kids? And for a long time, I didn't do a will. I was like the cobbler whose son has no shoes. I didn't do it, even though I've been doing financial planning for years. And then some guy painted the picture for me. He said, just say you're dead. You got killed on a highway. You and your wife were out, and you both got killed by a tractor trailer. CPS pulls up to your house. They pack up your kids, put them in the back of the cruiser, and your cruiser is sitting in the back window looking out like this as a car goes by, and the house just kind of fades away, wondering where they're going, who's going to take care of them, what the future holds. Now, that's what happens if you don't have a guardianship. And the CPS, Child Protective Service, picks up your kids. They take to a judge. The judge sees all these children coming through his system all the time, and he's trying his best to keep them together. But I got 4. He's trying his best to keep them as close together as he can. And so what he's going to do, he's going to say, well, the parents of the deceased still alive. My wife's parents are gone. My parents are still alive. They're divorced. Neither of my parents can be guardians of my children. I just can't have it happen. Can't. So the Child Protective Service, or the judge, I should say, will say, well, I'm sorry to hear that the wife's parents are dead, but we're going to bang the gavel, and at least we can keep the kids together. We're going to send them to live with their grandma. She lives in the same state, and she'll keep them together. Can't happen. Well, how could the judge who sees these kids with no parents whose grandmas are raising them and the grandma dies, whose mom's a drug addict, whose dad's a drug dealer, and all this stuff, 3 or 4 kids, and they have to split them up. How's he going to look at my kids and say, well, at least you have a grandma who's of somewhat sound mind enough to be able to take, at least provide a roof over their head and keep them together. Boom. You're going to live with the grandparents or the grandma. You just can't blame a judge for thinking that. Now, on the other hand, if I had a guardianship and a will that specified explicitly who I want to be the guardian of my children, that's a whole different can of worms, because now I'm telling the judge who I want. My wife and I. Now, we're Irish Catholics, so there's tons of us running around for aunts and uncles and cousins and brothers and sisters, all kinds of us. So the selection of who we'd want to take care of our kids upon our demise, which is not likely, is quite large, certainly more than just a default with a judge. And so that was I wish I could remember this guy's name, because he really had an impact on my life, but just painting that picture for me of my children in the back of that cruiser, just watching the house, looking out and just watching it slowly go away and just have no clue where they're going. So if you have minor children, you need a will, and you need within the will, it'll say who that you want the guardians to be of your kids if you're incapacitated or if you die. There's just no debate about that. You need a will to establish guardianship of your children if something happens to you. It cannot be any clearer, okay? Along those lines, you also need a will to draw up what's called a durable power of attorney. Now, there's three types of powers of attorney. You got just a general power of attorney, you got a durable power of attorney, and you got a springing power of attorney. So let me just stop with what a power of attorney does. A power of attorney allows you to assign the ability for your agent or your attorney in fact to act on your behalf. Okay, so a lot of people get a power of attorney because they want to do a real estate transaction in California and they live in Michigan or something like that. And a general power of attorney is good for like a one-time transaction or whatnot. Well, that's called a limited power of attorney as well, and not really some semantics there. But at the end of the day, I'm going to give you a power of attorney limited, where you can act on my behalf in this one case. A general power of attorney allows you to act on behalf in all these cases up to the point where I'm incapacitated. If I'm incapacitated, a general power of attorney stops. It stops at incapacity. And that's when a springing power of attorney comes in. It springs into effect upon your incapacitation. But how's incapacitation determined? Well, a doc's got to sign off on it. And a lot of these powers of attorney I've seen require two docs to sign off on it. So you're thinking about these doctors at the hospital. They're running around 8,000 clients. Patients they got to deal with. And here comes, Mr. Smith, because Mrs. Smith's incapacitated and he needs to act on her behalf to make sure she meets the required distributions on time. The doc's like, I'll sign off on it, but, I don't know how you're going to get a second one. And the second doc says, I'm not sure I'm comfortable taking on this liability. If I sign off on this and it turns out Mr. Smith is a scoundrel, it's coming back on me for signing off on it potentially. I mean, maybe, maybe not, but that's the state of the world we live in. Very litigious. So anyways, that's the springing power of attorney. Not a big fan of that necessarily. Situation dictates, but we do like most financial planners, durable powers of attorney, which means they're incorporated now while you're in good. So I'm in good shape right now. My durable power of attorney allows my wife to act on my behalf right now. But it also it survives incapacity. If I'm driving down the road and I get hit by that proverbial bus, I'm not dead. I'm just incapacitated. My wife has access to my accounts that are in my name solely without me being dead. Because think about it. A lot of people say I have access to my husband's accounts because I'm beneficiary. And you call up the financial agent, the agency who manages your money. You say, hey, this is me, Mrs. Smith. My husband's been in a car crash and he's in the hospital. I need to get access to his accounts because he's not dead. I don't get any life insurance, but we still got all these bills to pay, and I have a power of attorney. The hospital is going to say, hey, I mean, the financial institution is going to say, I'm sorry to hear that, but, you're the beneficiary. It doesn't mean anything. And just because you have a power of attorney doesn't mean anything either, unless it's a durable power of attorney. So then you look at your durable power of attorney. It says, I need two docs to sign off on it before I have access to the cash. And now you got to go scramble and find the docs to sign off to say that your husband's incapacitated. I mean, you can see where this goes. You have to do all this all the while. You have kids to take care of. You got your own work to do maybe. Just all this stuff. Bills flying out back and forth. You know how explanation of benefits are from the hospital. Bills are this thick. You got to contend with all that stuff. The last thing you need to do is go track down a couple of docs to sign off that says your husband or your wife is incapacitated so you can have access to their money so you can pay the bills. So what we recommend is get a durable power of attorney and get it approved from your financial institution before you need to act on that. So like at USAA, we used to have an off-the-shelf durable power of attorney and say, hey, just fill this out, get it notarized, and send it in, and we'll approve it within 48 hours if we find it to be acceptable. If we don't find it to be acceptable, we'll tell you. And that way you knew going in. My power of attorney is approved. So that way, if my husband is incapacitated or my wife's incapacitated, I know I can act on his or her behalf because it's already been approved. or my power of attorney was turned down because I need this, that, and the other. That way I can get that stuff in gear before I need to act on that, which is critical. The last thing we want you to do is have these bills flying at you every which way to Sunday. And you got to go to the doctor's office. You got to go to your financial institution. You got to go to all these various places to get them to approve the power of attorney to allow you to have access to the cash that your spouse had in his or her name only. And think about it. Most people have IRAs or 401ks as their primary accounts. Those are individual accounts. There is no such thing as a joint IRA or a joint 401k or a joint 403b. So if they're individually owned, the spouse has no ownership of them whatsoever. The only way a spouse has ownership of it, which they don't, or has access to it, is through a power of attorney. And the only way a spouse has access to it, if the owner is incapacitated, is through a durable power of attorney. But now you're the financial institution. And here comes Mrs. Smith again. And she comes up at you and says, hey, my husband's incapacitated. I do all my banking online, so you really don't know who I am. I just opened this account anyway. My husband did. And here's this document that says I'm the durable power of attorney. I want to cash this out. Send me a check. Financial institution is not obligated to accept that. The financial institution is going to say, whoa, we don't know who you are. Spouse just opened this account just the other day, so it's a new account. On top of that, you're saying he's incapacitated and you have this power of attorney. Maybe it's done photoshopped. Maybe it's been photoshopped to get it completed. We don't know. We're not going to accept that necessarily. Now, we might. Most likely, they probably won't, which is where a case you don't want to be in. You want to be, again, you want to make sure it's been approved before you need to act. And even that means taking a day out of your, a couple of hours or something like that to get it done in front of a notary. Just get it done. Call up your financial institution and say, hey, I'm going to send you a durable power of attorney. What do you need to approve that? And let them tell you and get that squared away. All right, so we talk about guardians. You need to have guardians. You need to have a will to provide guardians. We talk about powers of attorney. That's, again, another thing through your will that will provide that durable, general, limited, and springing. Again, we like the durable power of attorney in financial planning. We are not financial planners, not necessarily attorneys. So just do not take this as explicit legal advice. Make sure you seek legal counsel, and they'll go over your pros and cons on that. Last thing we want to make sure, which is outside of a will, but still a part of estate planning, is your beneficiary designations. We want to make sure they are up to date. Beneficiary designations should be looked at and renewed or revisited every 3 years or so. Let's just say Bob and Joan are married. They have a falling out and they get divorced. Bob dies, but Bob gets remarried and he dies, but he forgot to take Joan off as his primary beneficiary of his accounts. Marries Bob's new wife. Well, Mary's out of luck because Joan gets the money because Bob named Joan as the primary beneficiary and forgot to update it. I see that happen all the time. Tons of court cases on this stuff, and they all should go one way, which is the person named as beneficiary gets the money, even if they've been remarried, even if there's some instance of, I don't know, that you would think would be crazy for the person named from 1977. There's a case from beneficiary designations written up in like the late 70s. The person just died in 2015, been remarried. Doesn't matter. The court say, look, this is the beneficiary designation the person wrote. We're going to abide by it because we don't know that he wanted to change it. Just because he got remarried doesn't mean something. We don't know. Obviously the guy probably wanted to name his second wife as a beneficiary, but he forgot to do it. Stuff like that happens all the time. So what happens if you name your beneficiary as your estate? Don't do that. So IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, and those kind of accounts, you're going to have beneficiary designations. You don't want to name non-living entities, and that's just for tax reasons and things. When you die and the people you want to inherit the money. You want to name actual people to inherit the money for tax consequence perspective, as opposed to just say, I'm just going to leave it to my estate and let it go through my will, which will go through probate to figure all that out. Don't leave an IRA to a non-living being unless there's specifics that you need to make sure. You want to make sure little Billy doesn't get access to a couple $100,000 and do bad things with it. And so you want to put it to a trust or something like that. And we'll talk more about trusts in other episodes of the Heritage Wealth Planning YouTube channel. But remember, generally speaking, you want to name human beings as beneficiaries of your IRAs, 401ks, and 403bs, not non-living people. And so on top of that, just make sure, let's just say, going back to little Billy, say you name little Billy as a primary beneficiary and little Billy has turned for the worse, whatever reason why. Well, you want to update your primary beneficiaries maybe to make sure that little Billy doesn't have access to all of your accounts right out of the gate, and he can blow them in 3 months flat. Maybe you want to put some wrappers on there to make sure that he doesn't just liquidate the accounts and just go on a wild cruise through Monte Carlo or something like that. All right, so let's wrap this up. We got 3 main things that can think about when it comes to estate planning. It's not just for rich people leaving money to their trust. Estate planning includes guardianship in particular. I'm telling you, you got minor kids, you need a will to define who you want to take care of your kids if you die or if you're incapacitated. You got to have a power of attorney. If you're incapacitated, how does your spouse or how does someone else get access to your individually owned accounts? If the account is in your name, only you own it. That includes IRAs, 401ks, and 403bs. Your spouse has no rights to that account unless you legally name him or her to have the rights through a power of attorney. A durable power of attorney survives incapacity. A general power of attorney stops at incapacity. So you got to make sure you define what happens if you're incapacitated. Lastly, make sure all your beneficiary designations are up to date. Just take a list of everything you have. I mean, you can even go as far as your bank accounts, your non-IRA accounts, like an investment account they have at Charles Schwab or something like that. You name a TOD, a transfer on death, as a beneficiary designation on a taxable investment account. You have an account over at Navy Federal Credit, a CD, credit union, and a CD. You name a POD, a payable on death. Those are beneficiary designations on bank accounts. So I highly recommend all your accounts have beneficiary designations. That way they avoid probate and your will won't tell, your will is irrelevant. Your will will not speak to the disposition, the transfer. Disposition is a fancy word for how those assets get transferred at your death. It goes through the beneficiary designation. And you don't need to just have IRAs and life insurance. It can be beneficiary designations on investment accounts as well as bank accounts too. All right, so let me hear what you thought on this whole. I'm going to have a conclusion chapter wrapped up this. I'll put this on tomorrow. But let me hear what you think about your own experience with estate planning. Put it in the comments, please. I'm telling you, as I share with you my thing on the mic, people do read the comments. People do read these, watch these videos to get insightful information that can help them as well, not just from the guy yapping, but also from you too, the consumer of the channel. So write your own experiences on there, please. For heaven's sake, people need to hear the stuff that you've been through, good or bad. As always, hey, hit the thumbs up there. Give me a thumbs up if you would. Hit subscribe. And then finally, don't forget to hit the bell for notifications. Just be notified via email. And anytime you log into YouTube from then on, that we have new content out here at the Heritage Wealth Planning channel. Hey, look forward to talking to you next time. Thanks, guys.